Man, I've played a lot of games over the years, but some manage to grab me instantly, keeping me glued to the screen from the very first minute. And the interesting thing is that these games are already considered old. Even if my experience is different from yours, there's something universal about a game that hooks you right away. So here are some of the best titles that had me completely absorbed, almost without me even realizing it. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I have to start with Shadow of the Tomb Raider because the prologue is just wow. It's pure cinematic adrenaline. I remember the first time I played through that Cozumel opening, the atmosphere of the Day of the Dead festival, and then suddenly being thrust into this terrifying flood sequence. Within 30 minutes, I felt the weight of Lara's obsession. It's not just a platformer, it's a high-stakes survival drama. The way the mud reacts to your movement and the thick, humid vibe of the Peruvian jungle just pulls you in. What really hooked me wasn't just the flashy explosions, though. It was the stealth predator gameplay. There's this moment early on where you learn to cover yourself in mud to blend into the walls, and suddenly you aren't just running from Trinity, you're hunting them. It feels visceral. I'll be honest, sometimes the puzzles can be a bit of a brain teaser that might slow the pace down for some, but for me, that's where the Tomb Raider's soul really shines. You feel like a genius when you solve those ancient traps. It's a gorgeous, dark, and super immersive experience that makes you forget the world outside your window exists. Prey. If you want a game that messes with your head in the best way possible within the first 10 minutes, you have to play Prey. Arcane Studios are absolute wizards at immersive sims. I remember waking up in Morgan Yu's apartment doing that morning routine, and then boom, the rug is pulled out from under you. I won't spoil the twist, but the moment you realize Talos 1 isn't what it seems, you're hooked. The sense of mystery is so heavy you can almost taste it. The gameplay is what kept me glued though. The mimics, those little ink blot aliens that can turn into any object in the room, make you paranoid of every coffee mug and chair. I found myself hitting random trash cans with a wrench just in case. It's that tension that makes it addictive. You have so much freedom in how you solve problems. You can use glue to build your own stairs or hack a turret to do the dirty work for you. It's a smart, creepy, and incredibly polished sci-fi thriller. It's the kind of game where you start playing at 8 p.m. and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you're wondering where the night went. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Staying on that smart game vibe, Deus Ex: Mankind Divided is a masterclass in world building. From the second you step off the train in Prague, the atmosphere of this mechanical apartheid hits you. It's gritty, it's futuristic, and it's deeply uncomfortable in a way that's totally engaging. I remember just walking around the hub world, listening to the NPCs and feeling the tension in the air. You aren't just playing a character, you are Adam Jensen, a guy who never asked for this but is stuck right in the middle of a global conspiracy. The hook here is the sheer amount of detail. Every apartment has a story, every vent leads somewhere interesting. I spent my first hour just breaking into people's houses, not even for the loot, but just to read their emails and see how they were living in this broken world. The augmentations make the gameplay feel so customizable. Whether you want to be a social ninja talking your way through problems or a walking tank with arm blades, the game says yes. The shooting feels way punchier than the previous game too. It's a dense, stylish, and incredibly rewarding RPG that respects your intelligence as a player from the get-go. Dead Cells. Let's switch gears to something that is pure, distilled gameplay crack. Dead Cells. This is a roguelite that I kicked up thinking I'd play for 15 minutes, and I ended up staying up all night. The loop is perfect. You die, you learn, you get a new weapon, and you go again. But what hooks you in the first 5 minutes is the feel. The controls are buttery smooth. The way the character rolls, jumps, and slashes has this weight and snappiness that many indie games try to copy but never quite hit. The combat is so fast and satisfying. Every time you find a new build, maybe a freezing spell combined with a massive broadsword, you feel like an unstoppable god until a boss humbles you. I love the art style too. It's colorful but dark, and the music just keeps your blood pumping. What's great is that even a bad run feels like progress because you're constantly unlocking new blueprints and upgrades. It's that just one more run feeling that makes it impossible to put down. It's a game that doesn't waste your time with long intros. It just gives you a sword and says good luck. And honestly, that's all I needed. Sleeping dogs. Man, I will never stop shouting from the rooftops about how much I love Sleeping Dogs. Within the first hour, you realize this isn't just a GTA clone in Hong Kong. It's a top-tier martial arts flick where you're the star. I remember the opening chase through the night market, the neon lights reflecting in the rain, the crowded stalls, and that brutal, crunching combat. It hooks you because it feels so much more visceral and personal than your average open world. You're Wei Shen, an undercover cop torn between two worlds, and that tension is palpable from minute one. The combat is the real hook here. It's heavily inspired by Arkham, but with a much bloodier twist. Shoving a guy into a spinning exhaust fan or using a phone booth to finish a fight, it's satisfying in a way that's almost addictive. I spent my first hour just exploring North Point, listening to the radio and getting into street fights. The driving has this arcade-like snap to it that makes weaving through traffic feel like a dream. It's a game with a massive heart, a killer soundtrack, and a world that feels so alive, it's actually kind of sad we never got a sequel. If you want a game that grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go, this is it. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Next up is Shadow of War, and let me tell you, I am still obsessed with the Nemesis system. This game hooks you the second an orc captain survives a fight, remembers your face, and comes back 3 missions later to ambush you while mocking your skills. It creates these unique, personal stories that no other game can replicate. I remember this one orc who killed me early on, got promoted, and basically became my arch nemesis for the next 10 hours. It makes the world feel alive and reactive in a way that's totally addictive. The combat is that flow style, smooth, fast, and incredibly brutal. But it's the scale that really gets you in that first hour. You go from being a lone ranger to realizing you're going to build a massive army of orcs to lay siege to giant fortresses. The sheer variety of orc personalities, from the poet who sings while he tries to kill you to the terrifying Ologs, keeps things fresh. It's a massive sandbox where you're basically the puppet master of Mordor. Sure, it takes some wild liberties with the lore, but the gameplay loop of recruit, betray, and conquer is so satisfying that you won't even care. It's a legendary fun fest. The Witcher 3: Wild Hunt. Killing monsters. That cinematic intro for The Witcher 3 still gives me goosebumps, but what really hooks you in that first hour in White Orchard isn't just the combat, it's the writing. I remember doing a simple contract for a Noonwraith and realizing it was actually a tragic ghost story with layers of mystery. This game treats its side quests better than most games treat their main plots. Geralt of Rivia is such a phenomenal protagonist. He's world-weary and cynical, but he's got this hidden depth that makes you want to see his journey through to the end. The world building is just chef's kiss. Whether you're playing Gwent in a dusty tavern, and trust me, you will get addicted to Gwent, or tracking a beast through the woods using your Witcher senses, the atmosphere of the continent is absolute. I'll be real, the combat can feel a bit floaty at first until you get used to the rhythm of signs and dodges, but the atmosphere of the continent is so thick it doesn't even matter. It's a game that respects your time and rewards your curiosity. By the time you leave the first area, you aren't just playing a character, you are the Witcher. It's a masterpiece that defines what a modern RPG should be. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Finally, for this batch, we have the king of cinematic action, Uncharted 4. Naughty Dog are masters of the hook. The opening sequence, that high-speed boat chase in the middle of a storm, is pure Hollywood adrenaline. But what really kept me glued to the screen in that first hour was the emotional weight. Seeing Nathan Drake trying to live a normal life, playing a video game in his attic, and then the sudden reappearance of his brother Sam, it's so grounded and human. You're invested in the characters before the first treasure hunt even starts. The gameplay is as polished as it gets. The climbing, the rope swinging, and the shootouts feel like a choreographed dance. I remember the first time I used the grappling hook to swing over a cliff and take out a mercenary from above. I felt like a total badass. The graphics are still mind-blowing even years later. The way the mud splatters on the Jeep or how the wind rustles the grass in Madagascar is insane detail. It's a globe-trotting adventure that feels like a summer blockbuster you can actually control. It's a perfect farewell to a legendary character, and a game that shows exactly why we love single-player stories. Quantum Break is such a trip. Within the first hour, you realize this isn't your average shooter. It's a time-bending experiment that feels like a high-budget sci-fi show. I remember the first time time stuttered, and everything in the room just froze and shattered in midair while I was moving through it. It was a total holy crap moment. Remedy Entertainment are masters of atmosphere, and the way they blend live-action episodes with the game is actually really cool once you get into the rhythm of it. You're making choices that actually change the live-action scenes, which is a wild concept. The combat is what really hooked me though. Once you unlock Jack Joyce's Kime powers, like the Time Shield or the Time Blast, you stop playing it like a cover shooter and start playing it like a god. Dashing across the room in a blink and catching enemies off guard is so satisfying. I'll be honest, the story can get a bit brain melty with all the time travel logic, but the performances by Sean Ashmore and Lance Reddick, RIP to a legend, keep it grounded. It's a stylish, heavy-hitting experience that looks incredible even today. If you want a game that feels like a cinematic event from the very first minute, this is it. Batman Arkham Knight. Okay, let's talk about the ultimate power fantasy, Batman Arkham Knight. That opening scene in the diner, man, it sets such a dark, moody tone that you're instantly locked in. But the real hook is the first time you summon the Batmobile. Seeing that beast of a machine tear through the streets of Gotham while the rain beads off Batman's cape, it's pure comic book bliss. This is the most Batman I've ever felt in a game. The city's huge, beautiful, and absolutely drowning in detail. The free-flow combat is at its absolute peak here. It's so smooth and rhythmic that you feel like a one-man army. I spent my first hour just gliding from rooftops and taking down groups of thugs just because it felt so good. And the fear takedown mechanic? Absolute genius. Taking out 3 or 4 enemies in a slow-motion blur is peak badassery. I know some people felt there was a bit too much tank combat, but for me, the sheer polish of the world and the mystery of the Arkham Knight kept me glued to my seat. It's a dark, atmospheric masterpiece that proves Rocksteady are the kings of the superhero genre. Titanfall 2, I will say it 1,000 times. Titanfall 2 has the best single-player FPS campaign of the last decade. Within the first hour, you go from being a grunt on the ground to bonding with BT-7274, a giant walking tank with a personality. The movement system is pure gameplay crack. Wall running and sliding feel so natural that every other shooter feels slow and clunky after this. It hooks you because it's constantly throwing new, brilliant ideas at you and never lets up on the pace. The relationship between Jack Cooper and BT is the heart of the game. I didn't think I'd care about a robot, but BT's literal dry humor is just the best.
The level design is also insane. Every mission feels unique, like the one where you're moving through a factory that's building houses in real time. It's short, it's punchy, and it has zero filler content. Every second feels intentional. It's a crime that this game didn't get more love at launch because it's a perfect example of how to do a sci-fi campaign right. If you haven't played it yet, go do it for BT. Trust me. Ghost Recon Wildlands. Rounding out this batch is Ghost Recon Wildlands. This game hooks you because of the sheer scale and freedom it gives you right from the start. You're dropped into a massive, beautiful recreation of Bolivia and told, go dismantle this cartel. I remember my first hour, I stole a helicopter, flew to a ridge overlooking a village, and coordinated a sync shot with my squad to take out a high-value target. The tactical sandbox nature of the game is so addictive. You can be a stealthy ghost or a loud, explosive mess. The choice is always yours. The world building is surprisingly deep, too. Every province has its own vibe, from salt flats to dense jungles. I love how tactical you can get with the drone and the different gadgets. I spent way too much time just scouting bases and planning the perfect infiltration. Sure, the story is a bit American heroes versus bad guys, and the vehicle physics can be a bit wonky, but the freedom to approach any mission however you want is what keeps you coming back. It's a giant playground for tactical shooter fans, and once you start cleaning up the map, it's really hard to stop. Grand Theft Auto 5. Man, what can I even say about GTA 5 that hasn't been said? But think back to that first hour. The game kicks off with that snowy heist in North Yankton, and immediately you're thrust into a high-stakes shootout that feels like a Michael Mann movie. Then you're dropped into the sun-drenched streets of Los Santos as Franklin, racing high-end sports cars through traffic. The hook here is the sheer variety and the switching mechanic. Being able to jump between Michael's midlife crisis, Franklin's hustle, and Trevor's absolute unhinged madness is a stroke of genius that keeps the pacing perfect. Los Santos is a technical marvel even years later. I remember just driving around the Vinewood Hills, listening to the radio and being floored by how alive the world felt. It's a biting satire of modern life that's actually funny, and the level of detail is bordering on obsessive. Whether you're planning a massive jewelry store heist or just causing chaos on the boardwalk, the game gives you a level of freedom that is still the gold standard for open worlds. It's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that hooks you because it's a giant, beautiful playground where you can be exactly the kind of criminal you want to be. It's legendary for a reason. Dark Souls 3. Now, let's talk about a hook that feels more like a punch in the gut, in the best way possible. Dark Souls 3 is the most accessible entry into the series, but it still doesn't play around. Within the first 15 minutes, you face Udex Gundyr. Most games would give you a tutorial boss you can beat with one hand. Dark Souls 3 gives you a test of fire. I remember the adrenaline rush of finally taking him down. That victory achieved screen is a drug, man. You're hooked because the game respects you enough to be difficult, but fair. The atmosphere of the Cemetery of Ash and the high wall of Lothric is just breathtaking in a dying world kind of way. The art direction is top tier. Every ruined castle and every twisted forest tells a story of a world that's fading away. I love the weight of the combat. Every swing of your sword feels like it costs something. It's a game of patience, observation, and ultimate reward. You're constantly thinking, what's around the next corner, and can I make it to the next bonfire? It's a dark, beautiful, and deeply addictive challenge that proves that sometimes the best way to hook a player is to push them to their limit. Battlefield 1. Finally, we're closing out with Battlefield 1. I will never forget the prologue, Storm of Steel. It's one of the most powerful openings in any shooter ever. Instead of being an invincible hero, the game tells you you are not expected to survive. Every time you die, a name and a birth-death date appear on the screen. It's somber, it's gritty, and it's incredibly immersive. Within that first hour, you realize this isn't just a multiplayer game. It's a visceral, muddy, and beautiful tribute to history. The sound design is the real hook for me. The thwack of a bolt-action rifle, the roar of a tank, and the screams of a bayonet charge. It's terrifyingly real. The scale of the operations mode, where you're pushing through massive maps with 60 other players, feels like a real battle unfolding in real time. The visuals are still some of the best in the industry. The way the mud deforms and the fire spreads is just insane. It's a game that manages to be both a fun, chaotic shooter and a deeply atmospheric experience that respects its setting. It's the peak of the franchise for me, and it hooks you by making you feel like a tiny part of a massive historical machine.
And that's our list, guys. 15 old games that will have you glued to your seat from the very first minute. Whether you want to explore the jungles with Lara, solve a conspiracy as Adam Jensen, or survive the trenches in Battlefield, these games prove that a great hook is timeless. But I want to hear from you. Which game had you hooked the fastest? Was it one of these, or did I miss a game that you couldn't put down after 10 minutes? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it.